I've played both Call of Duty and Battlefield since the beginning. From Battlefield 1942 up to the absolute disaster 2042 has been for the past year, as well as the OG original World War II Call of Duty and its expansion pack United Offensive, up to, well, obviously the current released Modern Warfare 2. Throughout the lifespan of both of these franchises, I've actually really liked them both for very separate reasons. If you want larger scale combat, maybe vehicles, big open maps, you have Battlefield. If you want tight, fast-paced, and smaller scale Twitch shooter type gameplay, as well as more often than not a really good campaign, you have Call of Duty. As the years went on, these two became insane competitors, with the big FPS war always coming down to the latest Battlefield or Call of Duty game. But, well, recently it's been no contest, and that's no secret. Call of Duty is one of, if not the largest and most popular game franchises in the world, but for all of the frills and esports competitions that Call of Duty has had, Battlefield was still always very popular. It might not have led to a successful competitive scene, but it was still the game to beat when it came to large-scale shooters. As of right now, the Battlefield 1 release trailer has over 70 million views and 2.4 million likes, compared to the Call of Duty Infinite Warfare trailer, which has just over 46 million views and over 600,000 likes. And let's be honest, if YouTube still showed dislikes, well, this thing would be massively downvoted because people were just frankly sick and tired of advanced warfare and floating and futuristic Call of Duty, and they wanted that quote-unquote boots on the ground experience. Just 6 years ago, these two were neck and neck in terms of getting player bases in competition and selling copies of the game. And Battlefield has always been good at one thing: class-based team play over large and medium scale maps. And whether or not you like things like behemoths in Battlefield 1 or even the setting, it still did that extremely well. But as the past few years have shown, whether it's DICE, EA, whoever is over there calling the shots for game development, something terribly wrong has happened to Battlefield, and the core gameplay has shifted in order to try and draw a player base more akin to those that play Fortnite or Call of Duty. In doing this, they've pretty much lost everything that made Battlefield Battlefield. And I've gone over this comparison many times, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people that have had very negative things to say about Battlefield 2042. So instead of beating that dead horse, I'm going to talk about how Call of Duty has instead made a much better Battlefield. In 2022, Call of Duty has out Battlefield, and they've been able to do it through Ground War. Now, Ground War is not a new mode, and it was actually first playable in the 2019 Modern Warfare game, but something about it just didn't click with me. I thought that was going to be the game to take over my Battlefield itch, but it just didn't do it. But in Modern Warfare 2, however, Ground War just feels really good. I'm not sure if it's the map, the weapons, the whole thing, but it actually works really, really well. It's 32 on 32, which I would argue is the perfect size for larger maps. And just like Battlefield's Conquest game mode, you have a number of capture zones that you need to secure in order to beat the enemy team. The main difference here is that these capture zones actually give you points, and the first one to 250 points wins. So unlike Battlefield, which gives you a bunch of tickets at the start, and both capture zones and kills will reduce those tickets, in Ground War, it's simply capture the areas and not worry about the kills. Well, obviously you have to worry about the kills, but that actually don't affect your win or loss as long as you have the objectives. This is actually a really unique and interesting way to play a game like Ground War or Conquest, and I think it really rewards those that play on the objective while still allowing people to frag out and have fun. I've played on, I think, all of the maps that are available now on Ground War, and I've got to say, I think these map designs are amazing. In Battlefield 2042, you get large areas of the map that are open and killing fields for infantry or snipers, but in Ground War, there's plenty of little alleyways, buildings, rooftops, various terrain areas, even random things like little shopping carts. Whatever you can think of, you are able to duck away if you see a tank coming or you get shot by a sniper, but it's not too cluttered where the vehicle or sniper gameplay, if you're on the other end trying to take shots, is ruined. Now, I'm not going to say that you're not going to get sniped a lot, because if you are out of position, man, there are some rounds where I just get sniped over and over again, and I feel like I'm doing something wrong. And I am. I'm out in the open. I'm running down lanes that haven't been really cleared. It definitely punishes you if you don't do it properly. So holding angles is important to cut down various avenues if you are the sniper, and you need to flank around if you want to counter the snipers. The objectives are actually done extremely well, and the cover around those objectives is so much much better than Battlefield 2042. Because of how these maps are actually made and almost every single building is able to not only be entered, but then there's multiple stories and you can get on the rooftops, or if you're coming in from a helicopter, you can literally just parachute onto one. A lot of these zones turn into absolute strongholds where players keep respawning on themselves, or they have entry beacons, or they're next to the objective themselves, and it becomes these massive slugfest firefights, especially if they're right next to 1 or 2 capture points. In this game here, we were stuck for so long trying to assault Charlie, only for us to hold and get repelled right when we started to cap each time. We got so focused on it, we didn't even realize the entire rest of the map was being flanked, and we started to lose our first couple points as we just kept going face first into Charlie. Now, it was one of the best fights for an objective I could remember in any Battlefield game, and because of the quick spawning on your squad as well as the objective spawning, it was just constant chaos, but it reminded me, oh man, wait a second, we have other objectives. You know what? This isn't actually doing anything. We either need to flank back around to the enemy side, we need to protect our own spawns, because once you lose that 1 or 2 spawn on your side, you get cut off really easily. It makes you feel like you're not just playing Call of Duty, but you're playing Battlefield, and it's a Battlefield experience that is so much better than I've had in recent years. I also think they give experience better than Battlefield. It's extremely rewarding for players since you get defensive points as well as offensive points when you play. So not only do your kills count, but any enemy progress on a cap can actually be reverted as you clear that objective, giving you a clearing bonus. It's a great mechanic that incentivizes players to stick around and defend contested objectives, and I think it works really well. There were multiple times in a match where I would simply see something start ticking and then I would push around to clear, and then basically keep tabs on that objective and make sure the 1 or 2 people who try to push it don't completely open up an entire flank for the enemy. But this also works for offense as well. If you want to do something cheeky, you can actually start the cap on the objective, hit it a quarter or so capped, and then jump off the point and force players to come back and try to clear it, since they want to make sure you no longer have enemy presence nearby. Ambush those people who come defend, grab a couple buddies who spawn on you, and push the objective, and it's just fun. Every part of this is pretty fun, and it feels very reactive and less run in a circle going from A to B to C to D back to A like you constantly do on Conquest and Battlefield. There are actually multiple times throughout an entire game where capture points very rarely swap sides, and I thought that was a bad thing at first because I'm used to Battlefield. You push the empty objective, you capture it real quick, and you move on. But no, I actually thought that was really cool and created a bit more static of a front line, but allowed your team to slowly start pushing up and open that flank and try to get into a side that was a little less fortified and finally pick off that one objective. And I think the reason you don't get that circular ABC type of gameplay is because the objectives themselves are actually placed very well. I actually really like the flow of ground war, and it just felt like there was so much more engaging firefights and very little just sprinting to nowhere compared to almost every single Battlefield map I could think over the past few years. Now, I will say that there still are spawn issues. This is still Call of Duty multiplayer. It's not a perfect game, and if there's one consistency in the world, it's getting absolutely screwed over by spawns in Call of Duty. When points are contested, I would try to spawn in and defend, but quite a few times the placement of the spawn would actually put me closer to an enemy objective, giving me essentially a death sentence only seconds after taking my first step. Also, because there's so many things like UAVs or mortar barrages or helicopter gunners, all that type of stuff that you normally see in a regular Call of Duty multiplayer game does get carried over and entered into the absolute 64-player chaos that is ground war. But if you're not paying attention, you can essentially just die over and over again. Spawn into a mortar barrage, spawn into a helicopter gunner, spawn into literally anything. It's very frustrating at times. However, I would tell myself to slow down, play a little bit more tactically, and I'm not saying I'm going to be playing this like a mil sim. I'm not playing it like Squad where I'm really going slow or anything, but I would do things like swap my kit out and have that anti-air weapon so I could shoot down that UAV. I could shoot down the radar jammer. I could try to be proactive and maybe RPG that tank or that helicopter that's been bugging me. Those type of things I think will also really help involve the players who don't see themselves as a run and gun player. You can be that support role while also being an effective infantry player. And that's what I really like about Call of Duty's weapon customization and how it really works with ground war. Really really any type of playstyle is going to have fun in ground war. And if you get sick of one type, you can literally just edit your weapon and load out perks, all that stuff while in game. You don't have to back out, create a new one, and then get back in. So that way you can adjust on the fly. Now, the vehicles in Ground War are absolutely nothing like Battlefield. Like, they're not even close. They have enormous health pools, and to my knowledge, you don't have things like subsystems that can be disabled, but you can hit vulnerable areas like the rear of a tank to do more damage since it's not as armored. You can't get tracked, so it's not nearly as involved as War Thunder, and each shot just simply damages your vehicle's health pool until it eventually gets low enough to catch fire and explode. But in saying that, I actually really like them. They felt very arcadey, but kind of in a good way, and my only real main complaint was that since there's no ADS or other view when using these vehicles, it was actually very hard to aim upwards because I would just see the backside of the vehicle when I was trying to shoot down things like helicopters or players above me on the rooftop. But that's really just a small complaint. The vehicles are fun, they respawn, they don't cost any tickets, and you don't have to have any weird unlock to use them. Just jump in one and off you go. And if left unchecked, vehicles can absolutely wreck an objective. But between various AT systems and even the infantry thrown drill mines, which can actually drill into your vehicle and detonate the charge inside, killing you unless you dismount, I think the vehicles can all be countered quite well. The only one that is actually really hard to kill is the giant troop transport helicopters. Those things take forever to shoot down, but I never thought I couldn't kill a vehicle if I wanted to. And if I didn't have the right kit for it, I could actually just run away. And there's so many alleys that I can just dive in and try to not even worry about it that it never really affected me more than maybe 1 or 2 deaths. This is much, much better than those games of Battlefield where one tank or especially one helicopter pilot just absolutely destroys your team. I hate going into a game and feeling like I am just the NPC and that person in the helicopter is having the time of his life while I'm getting sweaty just trying to figure out how I can shoot him down. Only to then once again him get in the helicopter again and do it for the next 10 more minutes. That's frustrating. That's not fun for anyone but the helicopter, but I can not only have fun in these vehicles here, I can also have fun blowing up the vehicles, and I can have fun being infantry. Ground War actually does it all really, really well. Now, this might not be the most obvious reason to like Ground War, but not only do the games feel like Battlefield between all the vehicles and the conquest type objectives, but the weapons just work. As I mentioned earlier, really any type of playstyle works in Ground War. And even to this day, there's something still incredibly off with everything that 2042 is trying to do with specialists and removing the original assault, medic, support, and recon classes. But the funny thing is that Call of Duty not only doesn't have specialists or classes, their operators don't even have any special abilities. You simply just pick your customizable weapon, you pick your operator, which is essentially just a player skin, and you roll out. It's perfect. There's so much weapon variety, customizations, modifications, different weapon platforms with related weapon trees that it's actually pretty rare to find the same weapon twice. In fact, Modern Warfare 2 actually launched with 51 primary and secondary weapons. Battlefield 2042, on the other hand, well, there's 22. Yeah, there's 22 primary and secondary weapons in a game that's been out for nearly a year and is already in its second multiplayer season. That's pathetic. That's inexcusable. That's just laziness. Yeah, you get killed by a lot of M4s in Ground War, but you don't have to do that. Now, the smaller game modes, like your TDMs, your Hardpoint, Headquarters, all that type of stuff, those definitely lean heavily on the meta weapons and builds because of how fast-paced and close quarters those game modes are. But that's not always the case in Ground War. And I've been having fun running everything from smaller SMGs to longer range snipers. Now, my biggest complaint is not even the gameplay, but the noise. It's crazy.
Enemies deployed a counter UAV. Friendly UAV on station.
DDoS active! Setting mine!
We're taking Alpha.
Recon drone online!
Enemies taking Delta. Enemy UAV act. Hostile mortar strike near your position.
This constant chatter of zones being captured or lost, incoming mortars, outgoing airstrikes, and then when you add all that to the voice lines your character says while you're running around, like, do I really need to let everyone know around me that I am placing a mine? I just place it, please. Just for one moment, please be quiet. All of that is just overwhelming at times, and because of all that information, I actually start to do the opposite and I begin to tune it all out. I start to lose track of what objectives are going out, what call-ins are happening, and a lot of the times I had to simply rely on the visual map cues or markers to figure out what was going on. In saying that though, the call-ins, the chaos, the vehicles running around, helicopters blowing up out of the air, RPGs flying around, the chaos that is ground war gives you so many good battlefield moments. Ooh, good suppression mine. A little out of it though. We're good, we're good, we're good. Oh! Jesus, what is happening? Those only in Battlefield moments that I thought I missed not playing Battlefield 2042. Well, in Call of Duty, surprisingly enough, you can get Battlefield moments again. Maybe we should say them ground war moments. I don't know. It's really weird to say that because I thought Call of Duty was so different from Battlefield, but Battlefield has officially been out battlefielded. I know a lot of people dislike Call of Duty for whatever reason. There's plenty not to like, but I also know that many people miss the gameplay of Battlefield. I think if you really like that old school type Battlefield, Modern Warfare 2 actually has a ton of replayability, especially since on top of this game mode being incredibly fun and feeling like Battlefield, the squad system for it is light years better than Battlefield 2042. So playing with your friends is actually never a problem. Invite your friends, create a party, jump in your map, and the next map, well, surprise, you're still in the party. You can go on to whatever game modes you want, and it is just completely flawless. I'm having an absolute blast playing Ground War, but what do you guys think? Have you guys played Ground War? Do you think we're overreacting a little bit? Does it actually not feel like Battlefield at all? Or is it giving you that nostalgia of the old school Battlefield games that you've been missing since, well, about 6 years ago? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. But that's it for me. Until next time, peace.